What is up, everybody? In this short mini lecture video, we are going to be talking about really two kind of schools of thought here, critical approaches, new historicism and cultural studies. And you may recognize the fine fellow on this slide from the gender studies and queer theory mini lecture video. This is a French thinker by the name of Michel Foucault, and he makes an appearance here as well as in the other video because he really had a lot. He played a really large role in shaping both of these sort of fields, schools of thought. So just give you a reason why you're seeing the same person in more than one of these videos. So a little bit of an overview of what new historicism really is. It views every work as a product of its own historic moment. Viewing everything that we do as, the sort of the sum of all of, everything that's going on in the world. And it's interested in, and I'm quoting here from the back of our textbook. It's interested in, quote, the power of discourse to shape ideology, and it offers us a multi-layered impression or a thick description of a culture at one moment in time, including popular as well as elite forms of representation. So what does that mean? Well, it basically says that, because we can only ever know sort of the most basic facts of any, given historical moment, what literary texts can do, what other cultural products can do is give us, various little glimpses into what it was like at one moment in time. And it lets us, put these, again, layers of glimpses together to create, and interpret what life was like at any given moment. And it's very interested in not just, what life was like, but systems of power. And really, that's a lot of what Foucault was very interested in, was this transition from the feudal systems of power really dominated by the church into more modern systems of power focused on and around and maintained by this sort of surveillance state. He's really, really interested in how that has changed, how that shift has occurred, and how things like literature have reflected that shift. New historicism also emphasizes the fact that we are all just hopelessly subjective interpreters. There is no way for us to objectively really understand or see the one true truth. It says that we are all looking at these cultural products and interpreting them and understanding them on our own. So what are some of the key questions that new historicism asks? It asks what language or characters or events present in the work reflect the current events of the author's day. So again, focusing on what do we see in a novel or a poem or a play or a short story that reflects what was going on as the author was writing. Are there words in the text that have changed their meaning from the time of writing? This is especially, it's much more relevant when we're reading older literature. Language is not a static thing. It's constantly evolving and changing. And the way what words mean changes over time. It asks, how are events interpreted or presented to us? Like, how has the author interpreted the events of their world, and how have they presented these events to us? How are the events interpretations and presentation a product of the culture of the author? How much has the author's culture shifted and shaped? Again, going back to that idea of subjectivity, how much has their subjectivity influenced how they're showing us, how they're presenting these events and things to us? Does the work's presentation support or condemn the event? Does is the text kind of supporting the historical, whatever, or is it working to condemn it? Or can we see it doing both? Supporting or answer, not or supporting and condemning. And some more questions. How does this portrayal criticize the leading political figures or movements of the day? This is, something that we see quite frequently. How does the literary text function as part of a continuum with other historical or cultural texts from the same time period? How does it fit into, what other writers were doing during that same period? And how can we use the literary work to map the interplay of both traditional and subversive discourses circulating in the culture in which the work emerged and or the culture in which the work has been interpreted? So, how can we use this, how can we use this text as a way to kind of find ourselves in the relationship between, powerful writing and subversive writing? How can we use this text as a key to unlock sort of, a little nugget of understanding of a historical moment? And then lastly, excuse me, how does the work consider traditionally marginalized populations? So how does the work deal with populations that have traditionally been marginalized? So that is sort of new historicism, but what about cultural studies? Because in a lot of ways, cultural studies is kind of an offshoot of new historicism. The method, style, subject matter, they're often really, really similar to new historicism. Both of these methods, both of these critical approaches often draw really heavily from other schools of criticism, like Marxist criticism or Freudian criticism. But with cultural studies, the focus is less on this sort of sinister surveillance state and these massive systems of power. And it's really focusing more on the way that ordinary people resist and work against a dominant ideology. So and I think this last little bit kind of really speaks to what cultural studies is trying to do. Rather than focusing like way up here in the clouds and in, the systemic power structures and how they function on a very high level, this brings it down and breaks it down to a very individual level. So it expands the field of view, the stuff that we talk about, to include more recent documents, including everything from television, film, romance novels, and advertising, to museums in the art market, sports and stadiums, New Age religious groups, and other forms and practices. So like cultural studies allows us to take into account not just this sort of high literature, but everything that a culture produces. This could be a Barbie doll, in addition to, a poem about a Barbie doll. This could be Tiger King as a cultural product. So these are all the kinds of things that cultural studies takes as its subject. So that is all for this video. Thanks very much, and I will see you all in the next one.